Well, we have a couple more calls before we have to wrap up. So let's go out to California. We've got Alok, he, him, and has some questions about atheists and so forth. Alok, how are you?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about how we define and message atheism. So,
Hmm.
obviously, the basic pedantic definition is either you don't believe or you believe there is no. And so, I think most people understand that. I don't think that quite truly gives a powerful message to people who believe or people who are on the fence. So, it's like when you say I am this, it usually the next question becomes what does it entail? So I think we
Mm.
should have a more broad definition of atheism that we don't believe, and hence this is what follows. So, for example, I hope most atheists not believing in God should also not believe in supernaturalism. They should usually
Sure.
have skepticism and rationality. And if any atheist believes in crystals and voodoo, I think it's kind of a mismatch. We can
Mm.
say that the scientific basis, the scientific method is our basis. Our morality is based on secular humanism. We believe in equal rights for everyone, LGBTQ, stuff like that. So, just a very
Yeah.
basic definition of atheism might work in theory and on paper, but I think the usual question is what does it entail? So, I think if
Sure.
someone would ask me what
Well,
I
hang on, real quick, Alok. Hang on, because we're getting close to the end of the show, and I think there's already a good bit that both of us could probably jaw on for a second here. But I would say one thing, which is first off, I do think one of the things that is valuable for atheist spaces, right? Which is why I love hanging out here, and it's so many other communities, is because of the fact that there is a need in humans to kind of have some better answers about stuff and be around people that we like and we all kind of are looking in the same direction and going for the same thing. And I think there is a lot of value of saying, hey, you know now you don't believe in a god anymore, now you're not a part of a religion, great, here's some things that we over here that are also in that same boat. Here's some other things we think. Like, for instance, we think it's a bad idea to be a dick to somebody just because they're trans. Like, that's a fucked up thing. You shouldn't do that. But that doesn't really have anything to do with the whole atheism thing, right? It's more coincidence than anything that you're going to find people that are atheists and skeptics, right? It's like the fact that there are so many famous magicians out there that are also well-known like skeptics, and it's like, just because you're a magician doesn't mean that you're a skeptic, and vice versa. Like, I'm a skeptic, but I definitely cannot do magic. So the value of kind of where you're driving at, I think, is absolutely there. But I do think it's really worth saying that, hey, truly at the end of the day, like, atheism isn't this super all-encompassing thing, right? It is just really a much smaller claim. And that claim is pretty simple, which is just like, oh, like, I don't hold that belief, right? There are more nuanced and focused subcategories of that. And absolutely there are people out there that say, I believe there is no God, right? No gods whatsoever. And that's awesome. That's great that some people feel that way. And we may have more agreement on that than, say, I don't know, economics, right? Or what the corporate tax should be, or that tax between countries, and that's fine, because when we are a part of a religious community, oftentimes we actually were in a boat that was a lot more disparate with the thoughts than we may have realized. And there was a huge rallying cry around Jesus and God, and that kind of overshadowed everything else. And so again, I think, yes, there is value to having that kind of, hey, here's some thoughts that are secular or just not focused on a religion that also kind of talk about like, good things and like, hey, you know, double blind studies for science. That's always a good idea. But you don't have to be atheist or anything really to get to that conclusion. Um, I wanna throw it over to you, Captain Dadpool, real quick. And then I know I've got some other thoughts too. But yeah, I think us having the community where a lot of us get together and have similar thoughts on things is really, really awesome and valuable. But I definitely don't want it to be a prescribed type thing, right? Hey, now that you're an atheist, you have to believe X, or you can no longer believe in ghosts, right? But yeah, Captain Dadpool, what are your thoughts on kind of what else atheism entails, or maybe should entail?
Yeah, I think there are a few
Before
things
Captain
that
responds,
atheism.
I just wanted to say that I agree with you. It should not be prescriptive or a doctrine. I think we should message atheist worldview along with just the pedantic definition that this is the atheist worldview. It is not mandatory. These are guidelines. So
Yeah,
people
but I
know
think
that what does
I
it
think
say.
that's kind of the problem, Alok, is that the issue is that when you are a part of a religious belief, generally speaking, that is going to be more encompassing on purpose, right? Like particular group, some call it a cult. I'm not an expert, but Falun Gong believes in all of these very interesting, supernaturally magical things that they can do. Apparently all the members can do, but the actual belief system forbids them from showing it to non-members, funny enough. But their kind of system of belief entails a bunch of shit because it's like, well, we believe this thing and then all of these things come from it. But with atheism, that really isn't the case. And so like laying out an atheist worldview, I think is problematic because of that. Because Dadpool and I both may take the label atheist, but we may totally disagree on a lot of different things, you know. But yeah, hang on, go ahead, Captain Dadpool. I swear I'll shut up after this.
I was just saying there's already few things that atheists disagree on more
Mm-hmm.
than the definition of what an atheist is. Like Curie is already like super divided and on what we actually even fucking are. Um, so to try and add more identifiers to it, I think would just make it even more problematic. And there's plenty of people that are already trying to do that. But the way I think about atheism is I'm restored to my default setting. We're not born believing in God. We're not born believing the supernatural. Those things are taught to us. I have 4 kids. You can probably hear them in the background. They're loud as shit. My oldest is going to be turning 10 soon. He's never asked me about God or Jesus or anything because I've never taught him those things. Uh, so I would say, yeah, atheism is just our default setting. And I think we try to make it more nuanced, it would just cause more problems. And like you were saying, Rarity, it would start making us look more like a sect of religion or a cult.
Mm.
For having our own, next thing you know, we'll start crafting our own set of dogmas and dispositions and creeds and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
I don't want to get back to that. I don't I
yeah,
definitely, that was never fun in my opinion, but yeah, I guess where I fall in general is just that because I'm in a place where it literally is just the answer to one question. That's it. And because I see it that way, it'd be like if somebody came up to me and said, "Hey man, do you like chicken noodle soup?" And I go, "Yeah, I do actually. I do like chicken noodle soup." And they go, "Well, do you like carrots in your chicken noodle soup or not?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I like carrots in my chicken noodle soup." And then they said, "Well, then that must mean that you also think that it's okay to run over, puppies in the streets with your car or some nonsense," right? Like they're just totally, totally separate and have nothing to do with each other. I generally, though, I look to secular humanism. Generally speaking, that's a place that I found there was a lot of really, really well laid out stuff. I may not agree with every single thing, but that's okay because at the end of the day, that that moral system and what I accept as good methodology, right? The reason that I think crystals probably aren't doing anything sitting in the moonlight for 2 hours has nothing to do with whether I believe in a God, you know? But yeah, we'll give you a minute here to kind of shout back at us if you got anything.
Yeah, I think you guys are making sense. I was just wondering that if I identify myself as an X kind of person, then I usually have 2-3 points after that, and this is also what I do. This is also what I do.
Sure.
And so I'm not asking for any doctrine or religious thing, but I think I get your point. And I have a last snarky comment, if I can. You must have read 1,000 comments about Zeno and all that. He's an absolute troll, and he's been banned from many shows, and he never changes his argument. So that's just my last point.
Well, we appreciate the heads up in your view. We always try to give people as much of a benefit of the doubt as possible, and just try to have good conversations, which you've hung out with us a couple of times, Alok, and we appreciate you calling us back too. And again, you know, kind of where Dadpool was talking about a second ago about there already being some contention, needlessly, in my opinion, in the whole, you know, atheist community sphere, non-religious, free thinkers, skeptics, secularists, all of those fucking words just all mashed together. That whole sphere, we get a little combative with ourselves sometimes over stuff that isn't really kind of the main focus. And for me, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, if you say you're an atheist, awesome. And the rest of the stuff about you and what you believe and how you engage with the world, I'm just kind of gonna, you know, figure that stuff out as you tell me and demonstrate it to me. And if you turn out to be a shitty person, well, then I'll say, hey, like, you're a bad guy. Like, you're not in my camp on this. If it turns out that you're an atheist, but you want to criminalize individuals who are pregnant if they try to terminate that pregnancy, well, guess what? You're not on my team, you know, because my team is the team that says, hey, I'm a moderate Christian and I don't think we should criminalize homosexuality in my country. Right. And so that's kind of where I go at the end of the day. If somebody says they're an atheist and they want to stand up for separating church and state and keep that wall built, if you also happen to believe in crystals or tarot or souls, or I am fucking okay with that, you know, because let's make sure that those people that want to make abortion criminal and make people criminal just for who they are, let's make sure that those people don't have their voices the loudest, right? But Alok, thank you so much. We do appreciate you hanging out with us. And I think it's worth, you know, I do think it's worth having those discussions internally, right? To try to better our community, right? Hold people accountable if we're doing something super egregious. But I think kind of what you were saying earlier, there there's definitely a bit too much infighting, and we're just needlessly yelling at each other sometimes about the definition of atheism. I don't know. I wish we could cut some of that shit out and focus on the stuff that really matters, in my opinion.